The warning signs. Commander Amara Patel stood at the viewport of Outpost Helios, watching distant stars flicker like dying embers. After 15 years patrolling the outer colonies, she thought she'd seen everything space could throw at her. She was wrong. "Commander, you need to see this." Lieutenant Reed's voice crackled through her calm, tension evident in his usually steady tone. Amara turned from the viewport and strode to the sensor station, her boots clicking against the metal deck plates. The holographic display showed an anomaly at the edge of their sensor range, a mass of shifting darkness that seemed to devour light itself. It moved with purpose, like ink spreading through water, and it was headed straight for human space. "How long has it been there?" Amara asked, leaning closer to study the readings. "That's the thing, Commander. It just appeared. No warp signature, no quantum wake. One moment empty space, the next." Reed gestured at the writhing darkness. Amara felt a chill run down her spine. In all her years of service, she'd never encountered anything that could simply appear without some trace of its arrival. The laws of physics demanded energy signatures for faster-than-light travel. Unless those laws were wrong. "Get me a direct link to Fleet Command," she ordered, straightening her uniform. "And start compiling all sensor data. I want everything we have on this anomaly." As Reed worked to establish the connection, Amara's second-in-command, Commander Raj Sharma, entered the control room. His dark eyes widened at the sight of the holographic display. "Is that what I think it is?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "If you're thinking it's trouble, then yes," Amara replied. "Remember those stories from the Centauri merchants? About ships disappearing in the outer rim? Everyone dismissed them as space myths, but now we're looking at something that shouldn't exist," Raj finished. He pulled up additional sensor readings, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "These energy patterns, they're unlike anything in our database." The communication system chimed, indicating an established connection to Fleet Command. Admiral Winston's weathered face appeared on the main screen, his expression grave. "Commander Patel, your priority alert came through. What are we looking at?" Amara transmitted the sensor data as she spoke. "Unknown contact, sir. Approximately 3 light minutes from Outpost Helios. It's massive, initial readings suggest a volume larger than Earth's moon. And it's different." "Different how?" the Admiral pressed. "It appears to be absorbing all forms of electromagnetic radiation, sir. Light, radio waves, everything. Our standard scanning methods are having trouble getting clear readings. But it's definitely artificial, it's moving against local stellar currents." Winston studied the data streaming across his screen, his frown deepening. "Any attempt at communication?" "Not yet, sir. We wanted to alert command first, given the unusual nature of the contact." "Good call," Winston nodded. "We've been tracking similar anomalies in 3 other sectors. Whatever these things are, they're coordinated. I'm upgrading this to a level 1 first contact scenario. Hold your position but do not engage. I'm dispatching the 7th Fleet to your location." Amara's heart skipped a beat. The 7th Fleet was Earth's premier rapid response force, bringing them in meant command was taking this very seriously indeed. "Understood, sir. How long until they arrive?" 18 hours. Until then, you're our eyes out there. If these visitors make any aggressive moves, you're authorized to withdraw to the inner defense line. We can't afford to lose Helios, but we can't afford to lose you and your crew either." "Acknowledged, Admiral. Helios will maintain surveillance and report any changes." After the transmission ended, Amara turned to find her entire bridge crew watching her, waiting for direction. She could see the mix of fear and determination in their eyes. They all knew they were facing something unprecedented. "All right people, this is what we've trained for," she announced, her voice steady and confident despite her own concerns. I want continuous monitoring of that anomaly. Track every fluctuation, every movement. If it's so much as twitches, I want to know about it. As her crew sprang into action, Amara returned to the viewport. The stars seemed different now, knowing what lurked out there in the darkness. Humanity had spent centuries reaching for those stars, building colonies, establishing trade routes, thinking they were alone or at least safe in their corner of the galaxy. Now something had arrived that challenged everything they thought they knew about space travel and physics itself. And Amara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. In the hours that followed, more reports trickled in from other outposts. Similar anomalies had been spotted near major colony worlds and trade routes. They moved with precision, taking up positions like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. "Commander," Reed called out, his voice tight. "The anomaly, it's changing." Amara rushed to his station. The dark mass was shifting, portions of it separating and taking distinct shapes. As they watched, the shapes resolved into vessels, if they could be called that. They were angular, geometric forms that seemed to fold in on themselves in ways that hurt the eyes to look at. "How many?" she asked. "At least 30 distinct craft, ranging from destroyer to dreadnought size. They're launching smaller objects. Hundreds of them. Fighters," Amara realized. "Or probes. Either way, humanity's first contact with an alien civilization was about to begin, and somehow she knew it wouldn't be peaceful. "Send an emergency broadcast to all colonies within range," she ordered. "Tell them to begin civilian evacuation procedures. Now." As her crew scrambled to comply, Amara said a silent prayer that the Seventh Fleet would arrive in time. Because whatever these visitors were, whatever they wanted, she had a feeling humanity was about to face its greatest challenge yet. Shadow's Edge. The first attack came without warning. One moment, the alien vessels hung motionless in space, their geometric forms defying conventional physics. The next, Outpost Helios's proximity alarms screamed to life as waves of dark energy washed over the station's shields. Multiple impacts. Lieutenant Reed shouted over the blaring sirens. Shield integrity dropping to 60%. Commander Patel gripped her command chair as the station shuddered. "Return fire, all batteries. Get me a targeting solution on their lead vessel." But the station's weapons found no purchase. Energy beams and plasma torpedoes passed through the alien ships as if they were merely shadows, while the dark energy continued to eat away at their defenses. "This is impossible," Raj muttered, frantically working his console. "Our weapons are passing through them, but their attacks are very real. Shield integrity now at 40%. Amara knew they were outmatched. These beings, whatever they were, operated on principles of physics humanity had never encountered. They needed data, information that could help them fight back, but first they needed to survive. "Begin emergency evacuation procedures," she ordered. "Transfer all sensor data to secure storage. Lieutenant Reed, send our findings to Fleet Command. Make sure they know conventional weapons are ineffective." As her crew rushed to comply, a new alert caught her attention. The smaller alien craft had broken formation, accelerating toward the nearby colony on Helios Prime. 3 million civilians lived on that world, completely defenseless against this unknown enemy. "Commander." Reed's voice cracked with urgency. "The Seventh Fleet just dropped out of warp. They're engaging the hostile forces." The viewport lit up with fresh explosions as Earth's most powerful battleships unleashed everything they had against the alien armada. Massive dreadnoughts, state-of-the-art carriers, and swarms of fighters filled space with an awesome display of humanity's military might. And it meant nothing. Just as with Helios's weapons, the fleet's attacks passed harmlessly through the geometric shadows. The alien response was devastating. Beams of absolute darkness lanced out, cutting through shields and armor as if they weren't there. Ships that had survived dozens of battles during the colony wars were split apart in seconds. Admiral Winston's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim. "Commander Patel, we're implementing Case Omega. Get your people out of there. All ships, covering fire for Helios's evacuation." Amara wanted to protest, to find some way to turn the tide, but she knew the Admiral was right. They were facing an enemy that could ignore their strongest defenses while wielding weapons they couldn't counter. The smart play was to retreat, regroup, and find another way to fight. "All hands, abandon station," she announced over the general comm, "proceed to emergency shuttles in an orderly fashion. This is not a drill." As her crew began evacuation procedures, Amara stayed at her post, coordinating with the fleet to buy time. She watched in horror as the alien vessels descended upon Helios Prime, their strange weapons reducing cities to ash in moments. "Commander," Raj called out, his voice heavy with emotion, "the last civilian transport is away. Only bridge crew remains." Amara nodded, her heart aching for the countless lives already lost. "Begin final shutdown procedures. Prepare to dash." A massive impact cut her off as a direct hit rocked the station. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems began to fail. "Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Reed reported. "We're losing structural integrity. Get to the shuttles, all of you." Amara ordered. "I'll initiate the self-destruct sequence. We can't let them have access to our database." The bridge crew hesitated for a moment, but years of training took over. They knew their duty. As they rushed to evacuate, Raj lingered at the door. "Commander." "Go, Raj. That's an order." Once alone, Amara worked quickly to set the station's reactor to overload. As she finished the sequence, a strange sensation washed over her. The darkness that had been attacking them seemed to seep through the station's walls, consuming everything it touched. She barely made it to the last shuttle, launching just as Outpost Helios erupted in a massive explosion. As they fled toward the remnants of the 7th Fleet, Amara watched the tactical display in growing despair. The alien forces were methodically destroying everything in their path, and this was just one sector. The shuttle's comm crackled to life with Admiral Winston's voice. "All surviving ships, fall back to Rally Point Echo. We need to regroup and analyze what we've learned. This is only the beginning." As their small craft joined the retreat, Amara couldn't help but think of all they'd lost in just a few hours. But amid the despair, she felt something else growing: determination. Humanity had faced extinction-level threats before, from climate change to the colony wars. They'd survived through innovation, adaptation, and sheer stubborn will. These shadow beings might have superior technology, might be able to ignore the laws of physics as humanity understood them, but they'd just made a terrible mistake. They'd shown humanity exactly what it was up against, and if there was one thing humans excelled at, it was finding ways to fight back against impossible odds. Amara turned to her surviving crew. "Get comfortable. We have work to do." Breaking point. 3 months after the fall of Outpost Helios, humanity was losing the war. The shadow beings, now dubbed the Void Walkers, had systematically destroyed 17 colonies and pushed Earth's defensive forces back to the inner solar system. Commander Patel stood in the observation deck of Luna Base, Earth's last major military installation. The blue marble of humanity's homeworld hung in space before her, beautiful and vulnerable. Fleet traffic crowded the orbital lanes as civilians evacuated to underground shelters. "Commander?" A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Dr. Rivera is ready for the demonstration." Amara turned to find Lieutenant Reed, one of her few surviving crew members from Helios. The past months had aged him, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his uniform hung loose on his frame. "Thank you, Lieutenant. How's your arm?" Reed flexed his prosthetic limb, a reminder of their narrow escape. "Getting better at using it. The neural interface is finally starting to feel natural. They made their way through crowded corridors to the research wing. Luna Base had become humanity's last hope, housing both military command and the brightest scientific minds Earth could gather. Among them was Dr. Marcus Rivera, a theoretical physicist whose unorthodox ideas had gotten him laughed out of academia before the war. The research lab was a chaos of equipment, holographic displays, and hastily assembled prototype devices. Dr. Rivera stood in the center, his wild gray hair and rumpled clothes a stark contrast to the military precision around him. His dark eyes lit up as Amara entered. "Commander. You're just in time. We've made a breakthrough." He gestured excitedly at a complex apparatus dominating the room. "Remember how I said the Void Walkers might be operating on a different dimensional frequency? Well, we've finally found a way to prove it." Amara approached the device cautiously. Previous breakthroughs had often ended in spectacular failures. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "A quantum resonance detector. It can measure vibrations across multiple dimensional planes." Rivera activated the machine, and a holographic display sprang to life. "We've been analyzing debris from destroyed Void Walker ships, the few fragments we've managed to recover. Look at this." The display showed two waveforms, one steady and familiar, the other erratic and alien. "The top pattern is normal matter," Rivera explained. "The bottom is what's left of their ships. They're not just bending light or using advanced technology, they're partially phased into another dimension. That's why our weapons pass right through them." Amara leaned closer, hope stirring for the first time in months. "Can we use this? Find a way to hit them? Better." Rivera's grin widened. "We can pull them fully into our dimension. Force them to fight on our terms. But we'll need something bigger than this prototype. Much bigger." Before Amara could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. Red emergency lights bathed the lab in crimson as Admiral Winston's voice came over the speakers. "All personnel to battle stations. Void Walker fleet detected approaching lunar orbit. This is not a drill." Amara's comm unit chirped with updated tactical data. The holographic display showed a massive force of geometric shadows emerging from deep space, the largest concentration of Void Walkers yet seen. "They found us," Reed whispered. "Doctor," Amara turned to Rivera, "how quickly can you scale up your device? With a full engineering team and unlimited resources? Maybe 48 hours. But we'll need a power source stronger than anything we currently have." "You have 12 hours. Amara's voice was steel. "Lieutenant, get me a direct line to Admiral Winston." "Doctor, write down everything you need. We're about to throw everything we have at this project." As her orders were carried out, Amara studied the tactical display. The Void Walker fleet was moving with purpose, their angular forms arranging themselves in an attack formation they'd seen too many times before. But this time was different. This time they had a chance, however slim, of fighting back. They just needed time to implement Rivera's discovery. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Every available engineer and technician was redirected to Rivera's project. Power was diverted from non-essential systems. The remnants of Earth's fleet moved into defensive positions, preparing to buy them every possible second. Amara coordinated it all from the command center, watching as humanity's last line of defense came together. The Void Walkers advanced methodically, their dark energy weapons already beginning to probe Luna Base's shields. "Status report," she demanded, turning to Rivera's primary engineer. "Quantum resonance array at 60% capacity," came the response. "But Commander, even at full power, we can only affect a small area. Maybe a few ships at most. Then we'll have to make those shots count." Amara opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Commander Patel. We need to draw their primary vessels into range of the base. Prepare for close-quarters engagement. She knew what she was asking. Ships would be sacrificed to lure the enemy into position. Good people would die to give them this one chance at turning the tide. The battle that followed was unlike anything in human history. Earth's fleet fought with desperate courage, diving between the geometric shadows of Void Walker ships, drawing their fire, forcing them to cluster together as they pressed their attack on Luna Base. The base's shields buckled under repeated strikes. Sections of the facility lost pressure, emergency bulkheads slamming shut to contain the breaches. Through it all, Rivera's team worked frantically to complete the quantum resonance array. Power levels at maximum. Rivera shouted over the din of battle. The array is ready. Amara studied the tactical display, waiting for the perfect moment. The Void Walkers had taken the bait, concentrating their largest ships for a final assault on the base. Now, Doctor. Hit them now. The light within. The quantum resonance array hummed to life, its energy building to a crescendo that made the air itself vibrate. Through the observation windows, Amara watched as an invisible wave of force expanded outward from Luna Base, rippling through space like heat waves over desert sand. For a terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then the closest Void Walker vessel began to change. Its geometric shadow form wavered, like ink dispersing in water. The darkness that had made it nearly invisible to sensors began to fade, revealing something underneath, a physical structure of impossible angles and crystalline surfaces that seemed to shift and flow even as they became solid. It's working! Rivera shouted, his fingers flying over the controls. They're being pulled fully into our dimension. More Void Walker ships underwent the transformation as the resonance wave spread. Their ethereal darkness stripped away, they became tangible, vulnerable, real. And that's when Earth's fleet struck. All ships, concentrate fire on the transformed vessels. Amara commanded. Standard weapons should be effective now. The space around Luna Base erupted in a fury of plasma torpedoes, rail gun fire, and energy beams. This time, the attacks didn't pass harmlessly through their targets. The Void Walker ships, forced to exist fully in normal space, found their otherworldly advantages suddenly stripped away. The first hit ship shattered like glass, its crystalline structure unable to withstand the raw kinetic force of human weapons. Others followed, their alien armor proving far less effective than their dimensional phasing had been. But the Void Walkers weren't defeated yet. The ships outside the resonance field's range maintained their shadowy invulnerability, and they responded with devastating force. Dark energy lanced through Earth's fleet, cutting ships in half, while others simply ceased to exist where the shadows touched them. The array is drawing too much power. Rivera warned. We can't maintain the field at this size for long. Amara studied the tactical display, mind racing. They needed to make this count. Focus the field, she ordered. Reduce the area but increase the intensity. Target their command ship. The massive vessel at the center of the Void Walker fleet was larger than any they'd encountered before, its form a constantly shifting maze of geometric patterns that hurt the eyes to look at. As the resonance field contracted and intensified, the great ship began to change. The transformation was more dramatic than with the smaller vessels. As its shadow form was stripped away, the command ship's true appearance emerged, a vast crystalline structure that seemed to be grown rather than built, organic patterns flowing through inorganic materials. And for the first time, they saw the Void Walkers themselves. Through the newly visible hull of their command ship, sensors detected beings of pure energy, their forms constantly shifting between states of matter. They moved through their vessel like lightning through storm clouds, their actions becoming erratic as they found themselves fully pulled into normal space. Fascinating, Rivera breathed, staring at the sensor readings. They're not just using different dimensional physics, they evolved in them. This is their natural state. And we've just dragged them somewhere very unnatural, Amara realized. All ships, target their command center. Everything you've got. Earth's remaining fleet concentrated its firepower on a single point, where the sensor readings showed the highest concentration of energy beings. The crystalline hull, designed for travel between dimensions rather than conventional combat, began to splinter under the assault. Suddenly, a new signal cut through all communication channels, not radio or standard transmissions, but patterns of energy that the computer somehow translated into words. Stop. We would speak. Amara's finger hovered over the command to continue the attack. After all the destruction, all the lives lost, could they risk showing mercy? Commander, Rivera said softly, this might be our only chance to understand them. To prevent this from happening again. The tactical display showed the remaining Void Walker ships had ceased firing, hanging motionless in space. Their transformed command ship, still caught in the resonance field, pulsed with patterns of light that seemed almost like a heartbeat. Amara took a deep breath and opened a channel. This is Commander Amara Patel of Earth Defense Force. We're listening. The response came in those same strange energy patterns. We did not understand your existence in this single dimension. We thought you primitive, dangerous. Now you show mastery over dimensional barriers. You are more than you appear. As are you, Amara replied carefully. But that didn't give you the right to attack us. Perception filtered through alien understanding, the Void Walkers communicated. We saw your expansion into space as infection spreading. Now we see adaptation. Evolution. Like us, but different. We would reconsider. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just first contact anymore, it was first understanding. Two species, evolved in completely different dimensional states, finally seeing each other clearly. Commander, Reed's voice was urgent. The resonance array is failing. Power systems are critical. They had moments at most before the Void Walkers would return to their natural state. What happened then would determine the fate of both species. Amara stood straight, her decision made. If we release you, will you withdraw? Can we find a way to coexist? The crystalline command ship pulsed with new patterns of light. Yes. There is much to learn from each other, now that we can truly see. We will withdraw, return when we can communicate without interference. Next time, we will come in peace. Commander, Rivera interjected, the array is about to fail. Amara gave the order to power down the resonance field. The Void Walker ships immediately began reverting to their shadow forms, but differently than before. Instead of the oppressive darkness they'd first encountered, their dimensional shifting now seemed more like a natural flow between states of existence. The alien fleet withdrew in a way that defied normal space, their geometric forms folding in on themselves until they simply ceased to be visible to human senses. In moments, they were gone, leaving only the debris of battle and the transformed understanding of humanity's place in a much stranger universe than they'd imagined. Stand down from battle stations, Amara ordered, her voice carrying the weight of exhaustion and hope. Begin search and rescue operations for damaged ships. And someone get Dr. Rivera's team whatever they need. I have a feeling we're going to need a lot more of that resonance technology. Dawn's promise. 1 year after the Battle of Luna Base, Commander Amara Patel stood in a very different observation deck. The newly constructed Dimensional Interface Station hung in high Earth orbit, its quantum resonance arrays not weapons now, but bridges between different states of existence. Remarkable how much can change in a year, Dr. Rivera said, joining her at the window. The physicist had traded his rumpled lab coat for a formal uniform, though his hair remained characteristically untamed. As head of the Dimensional Sciences Division, he'd been instrumental in transforming humanity's understanding of the universe. Hard to believe we were ready to destroy each other, Amara replied, watching the shimmer of a Void Walker ship passing through the station's stabilization field. In its crystalline form, the alien vessel was beautiful rather than threatening, its geometric patterns catching and refracting sunlight in impossible ways. The station's main chamber had been specifically designed to maintain a state of dimensional overlap, allowing humans and void walkers to interact directly. It wasn't perfect, the energy beings still had to concentrate to maintain coherent forms in normal space, and humans needed special shielding to withstand exposure to higher dimensional energies, but it worked. "Ambassador Luminara is ready for you," Lieutenant Reed announced, approaching with his prosthetic arm now upgraded with Void Walker crystalline technology. The integration of their sciences had produced medical advances that would have seemed miraculous just a year ago. Amara nodded and made her way to the conference room. The space was divided into two distinct environmental zones, one for conventional matter and one for dimensional flux. In the latter zone, the Void Walker ambassador's form rippled like Aurora Borealis given consciousness. "Greetings, Commander Patel," Luminara communicated, energy patterns translating seamlessly through the new interface systems. "We have much to discuss." "Indeed we do," Amara took her seat. "Our deep space sensors have detected something approaching the galaxy. Something big." The ambassador's form pulsed with patterns that the translation system rendered as concern. "We have seen it too. A gravitational anomaly moving between the dimensions. Larger than anything our species has encountered. Which is why I asked for this meeting." Amara activated a holographic display showing the anomaly's projected path. "Whatever it is, it's headed for both our territories. Neither of us may be able to face it alone. Once we thought your species primitive," Luminara's patterns shifted to something like amusement. "Now you propose we face the unknown together. You continue to surprise us. That's kind of our specialty," Amara smiled. "Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our weapons. It's our ability to adapt, to learn, to turn enemies into allies when we take the time to understand each other. A wisdom we had to learn through conflict," the ambassador acknowledged. "Very well. We will share our dimensional sensing technology if you will share your resonance field innovations. Together, we may develop defenses against this new threat." As they began discussing the details of their cooperation, Amara reflected on how far both species had come. The Void Walkers had initially seen humanity's expansion into space as a virus spreading through their higher dimensional domains. Humans had seen the Void Walkers as incomprehensible invaders bent on their destruction. Both had been wrong. "Dr. Rivera," she called out. "We're going to need larger resonance arrays. Much larger. Think you're up for it?" The physicist's eyes lit up with familiar excitement. "Commander, I've had some ideas about linking multiple arrays into a dimensional web that could." As Rivera launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his latest theories, Amara watched humans and Void Walkers working together throughout the station. Engineers from both species collaborated on new technologies. Scientists shared discoveries that reshaped their understanding of reality itself. Even the military personnel had begun joint training exercises, learning to coordinate their vastly different capabilities. Whatever was coming from deep space, humanity would face it not alone, but alongside allies who quite literally saw the universe from a different dimension. They had survived their darkest hour not through force of arms alone, but through the uniquely human traits of adaptation, innovation, and the ability to forge understanding even across the boundaries of dimensional existence. The shadow of fear had given way to the light of discovery, and in that light, both species had found something greater than victory. They had found a future worth building together. As the Earth turned below them, its blue marble beauty unchanged by all they'd learned about the universe's true nature, Amara smiled. Humanity had reached for the stars thinking they were alone. Instead, they had found both terrible danger and incredible possibilities. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, wiser, ready to take their place in a universe far stranger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. The next challenge was already approaching, but this time, they would face it not in darkness, but in the light of shared knowledge and unity. And that, Amara knew, made all the difference.